Shalom, Israel, Shalom. Barakatha Yahweh, Barakatha Yahweh Shai, Barakatha Yahweh, Barakatha Yahweh Shai. Call Haloyim Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Wa Rahakodash, Lamunya, Wa Rahakodashka, Laha Thakwak, Malapanyaka Tha, Salakanya, Babakusha, 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 Shemai, Yasharahla, Yahweh, Alahayanawa, Yahweh, Ahud. I would like to say double honors to my elder apostles who speak this truth in sincerity, who rule well, my apostles of GMS, the elders, the bishops, peace and salutations to the Akim spread abroad, spitting this fire, and blessings to the Akwathium, the sisters that are listening and learning, sisters loyal to the soil. This lesson is called You Are Not African American. You are not African American. And I want to start off by saying that this land that you are occupying was discovered from someone else. Well, actually, all he did was put his name on it. And he goes by the name of Salakia, forgive me. Amerigo Vespucci. Amerigo Vespucci. Now, this lesson was inspired through Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai, through the brother Yawasah from GMS Birmingham, Alabama camp. He had mentioned it in those names in a lesson that he did earlier today. And I wanted to land back there. I wanted to go in more in depth in it, kind of sparked a fire. So, and I already know pretty much about him. I was taught by my mother and father. My mother was a history major, but I kind of wanted to get in more detail, more in depth in it. And Americo Vespucci was an explorer, an Italian explorer, a navigator, and a cartographer. A cartographer is someone who draws maps and designs maps, creates maps. Who first demonstrated that Brazil and the West Indies did not represent Asia's eastern outskirts, as initially conjectured from Columbus' voyages, but instead constituted on entirely separate landmass. So, Americo Vespucci, he sailed through the West Indies along with Columbus, but Columbus got credit for discovering America when he was just another, conqueror, another, explorer that colonized Columbus, who I'm speaking on, who colonized the West Indies, and then you have Americus Vespucci, who also went through the West Indies, but he went through the Latin Americas, so, they want to make it like this dude is some heroic person when his only mission was to get things of different, artifacts and spices and things like that. But it was also, to do what they was always doing, which is big business, and that was collecting slaves. So let's continue. Let me see. Now, they say colloquially, which means colonized, named the New World. So they named, this was like their voyage, the New World. They named the Americas the New World. And this second supercontinent came to be known as the Americas, deriving its name from Americus, the Latin transcription of Vespucci's first name. Amerigo was an Italian-born merchant and an explorer who took part in an early voyager to the New World on behalf of Spain. Around the 15th century, Vespucci had slaves. The majority of them he left to his wife and his nephew. So he did have slaves, and and since he was constantly voyaging, he left them. He left them, into the hands, into the custody of his wife and his nephew. And it probably were the, well, obviously the Northern Kingdom, because of his voyages, from the Portugal area. These expeditions took him to the Latin Americas, Brazil, and Mexico, those places. He also sailed through the West Indies also, and this is done between the late 1400s and the early 1500s. Amerigo Vespucci.
Italy in 1451, Amerigo Vespucci held a series of jobs: merchant, steward, banker, and ultimately operated a ship outfitting business in Sevilla, Spain, before becoming an explorer in his 40s.
He apparently met Columbus, and through conversation with him, sparked his interest in going to the Indies, which is what the Spaniards called the Americas.
In 1497, Vespucci sailed with a fleet of Spanish ships in search of a western passage to the Indies and landed in Central America. He is believed to have sailed as far north as the Gulf of St. Lawrence before returning to Spain.
On May 16, 1499, Vespucci sailed from Cadiz to the New World and explored along the coast of Brazil, and in the course of that voyage discovered the Amazon River.
Now they would have you believe that, this dude, was just a voyager, just heroic, but, they were people already on the land, which were your 12 tribes of Israel. Now you can say, your 10 tribes, after the Assyrian captivity, but and that's where they migrated to, which was Asareth, but that was, so it was already a name given. But you could say 12 because you have to remember that they also sailed through the West Indies. So you had to have some Benjamites there with them, and like I mentioned, like I mentioned, he had slaves, so these people were taken, and taken back to Spain. You understand what I'm saying to you? And the 10 tribes consist of, Issachar from Mexican, or were the Mexicans, Asher, from Colombia to Uruguay. You had Argentina, and Chile, which is Naphtali. You had the Seminole Indians and the North American Indians, which is Reuben and Gad. You had Manasseh, the Cubans. You had Ephraim, which is the Puerto Ricans. Zebulon, Guatemala. You had the Dominicans, who was Simeon. So he was up and down the coast, when he discovered he discovered the islands, and he came and he thought this was undiscovered, but that's a lie. You don't believe anything that they say. These people were directed to this place. You understand what I'm saying?
And contacts with the fascinating and mysterious New World. Many prominent navigators, explorers, and captains were fascinated by the possibilities of a world outside the known boundaries of Europe, a world far across the expanses of the ocean. In this new world there were many opportunities, including those of trade, gold, conquest, and riches. Today we know this new world as America, but do you know where its name came from?
And the key word there is conquest. They conquered, they brutally, savagely raped men and women, destroyed, made them sick with all types of diseases. They conquered our people, and they made, so never forget that. You are no American. You are Israel. You are not named after some Italian. Amerigo Vespucci. I'd like to do a continuation of this lesson of a well-known Scipio Africanus. Now, Scipio Africanus was a Roman general and later was a consul. And a consul is like in the military rank, he's like a like he like a chief. Let me Salakia, let me look that up. A council. A council is like in a government office, a government office. But he not only, he was who was often regarded as one of the best military commanders and a strategist of all that whole time, that whole era. You understand what I'm saying? So his greatest military achievement was the defeat of Hannibal at the Battle of Zama in 202 BC, which is a modern day Siciliana or Tunisia in Africa, which is the modern day Tunisia in Africa. And during his African campaign, he had no additional troops with him, just but the Sicilian garrison, which is like this brigade, this army, who were just one set of troops. He didn't have a big army with him. You understand what I'm saying? And he trained all his troops in Sicily. Africanus is Latin for African, hence the name Africa. But we all know that Africa is the land of Ham. It's the land of Ham. You understand what I'm saying? With Mizraim, who is now Egypt, but Mizraim means mount or fortress, and but Egypt right now means bondage. You understand what I'm saying? So that's a spirit. And then you have Canaan, who was the son of Ham, also with Mizraim, and Canaan means to be brought down by a heavy load. And Canaan is in South Africa. You have Put, which means imitative, and Put is in North Africa. Cush is Ethiopia, which means black, or Kadar, which is black. You understand what I'm saying? And these are the sons of Ham. Africanus conquered the land of Ham in the Punic Wars between 218 to 202 BCE. Punic is related to the Carthage or the Carthaginians, which is Phoenician, meaning faithless or treacherous. Phoenician is a Canaanic dialect or a Shemitic origin, and we know that's from Abraham. You understand what I'm saying?
In 202 BC, the Second Punic War between Rome and Carthage looked to be nearing its conclusion. Go ashore! Despite the stunning successes of the Carthaginian commander, Hannibal, in Italy, the Roman general Scipio had invaded Africa and was threatening Carthage herself. Carthage recalled Hannibal and his army to fight Scipio. Hannibal and Scipio were the two best commanders of their age, neither general having lost a battle before. They would finally meet at Zama. Hannibal and Scipio finally meet on the battlefield. Scipio is able to bring experienced legionaries to the battle. Hannibal, meanwhile, is forced to rely mostly on mercenaries and fresh recruits, keeping his most elite troops in reserve. With his Numidian allies, Scipio has a cavalry advantage over Hannibal's horsemen. Yet Hannibal still has his war elephants. The Romans must find a way to deal with this threat.
lost on both sides. Yet Rome and Carthage continued the fight. Carthage, however, was on the decisively losing end of the conflict. The armies of the Republic had pushed Carthaginian forces back on every front. Now Roman forces were at her very doorstep and were led by the general Publius Cornelius Scipio, who proved he was up for any challenge. But not all was lost. Hannibal Barca, the greatest military mind that Carthage had produced, and arguably one of the best military minds in history, had assumed command of the army. Their armies met on a dry, dusty plain in North Africa, in what would one day be the country of Tunisia. These men were veteran generals who had never before been defeated in battle. Both had cunning minds that put them into a league of their own, and perhaps this is part of the reason they decided to meet. A few days before the battle, Scipio had managed to capture some of Hannibal's spies in his camp, but instead of executing them, he gave these men a grand tour of his forces. He knew that they'd report back exactly what they saw.
If you notice, look at that eagle. And all the conquerors, they all had them. They all had that eagle. Rome, Greece, all of them, all the way down to now. If you can receive it. So the place you once knew was the land of Ham is now Africa, named after Scipio Africanus.